Is this the year that USC actually competes with Ohio State for the Big Ten championship? Let's talk about it. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If you're into that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you believe USC is in contention to compete with Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon for the Big Ten title in 2025? Because there's every indication that USC is headed in the right direction, right? We know this because if you take a look at just what the recruiting rankings have done, they've been stellar, right? They're number one in 2026 ahead of Notre Dame and ahead of Ohio State. We're also talking about signing. They hope to sign the number one tight end in the class in Mark Bowman. They have a top 3 cornerback commit in Obert Hill. They got one of the top OTs in 2026. They also got number 1 defensive lineman and number 2 edge from the state of California, which is also kind of a criticism that we've had of Lincoln years past is, why don't you put a fence around the state of California? Because USC in California is like Texas in Texas. All you got to do is offer the right people, and it feels like you're going to have a contender. They've also got one of the best running back duos in the 2026 class. The 5-star talent that they're going to have coming in, we know what it's going to be about, or we know what it's going to be about. Now, in this new age, it's not just that we got to worry about committed players ended up signing, ask Dan Lanning about that, but also what would happen in the transfer portal. You'll remember that Deuce Robinson's at Florida State now, and that was one of the best tight ends in the country when he came out, a guy that also had a tremendous future as a baseball player. I'm also looking around and asking, is he going to continue to hit on quarterbacks? Because up until recently, and by recently I mean Miller Moss, Lincoln Riley had been more or less unassailable when it comes to evaluating quarterback play, right? We'll know that when he got to Oklahoma, it was Baker Mayfield. And from Baker Mayfield, you get to Jalen Hurts. From Jalen Hurts, you get to something like Spencer Rattler, but kind of, sort of, right? I still don't think that's a bust, even as he was a 5-star talent, didn't actually measure up to what we thought he would do. We thought he would be what Bo Nix was at Oregon his last year. Didn't quite get there. Kyler Murray's in there, obviously, right? And then Caleb Williams. So you've got 3 number 1 overall picks in the NFL draft. You've got 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and you got a Heisman Trophy runner-up in Jalen Hurts. And then we get the move to USC. Caleb Williams follows, so we'll count that. But after that, Miller Moss had a great game in the Holiday Bowl against Louisville, and that got him the job. As a matter of fact, probably kept Will Howard from going to USC, and Will Howard ends up at Ohio State. Ohio State wins the national championship. Did they win the Big Ten championship? No, right? That we know this. Penn State, Oregon played for that. But one of the things that I was really interested in going into this season was just how we're going to evaluate Lincoln Riley and USC in year 2 in the Big Ten, because now that Oregon has shown you can show up right away and compete in that league and win, we're all looking at him going, all right, now what? Because you are the guy who was making, I kid you not, $110 million over 10 years, according to ESPN's Dave Wilson. I think that number probably goes up if you contend for a Big Ten championship, and they've got time, right? Nobody wants to buy Lincoln Riley out of his contract right now, and I don't think that they could afford to do it, honestly, given all the other things you got going on at SC. But also, you've seen him respond, right? Show is called Adapt and Respond. How are you going to adapt to the new environment? How are you going to respond? I have zero time for moaning and complaining about the state of college football. We've got topic after topic after topic about why college football is a mess. We've got column after column after column about why college football is in such a bad space. To which I say, leave. Get the hell out of here. I don't need you. We don't need you. It's fine. If you don't want to bust your behind for $10 million a year, $5 million a year, I assure you somebody else will do it. Instead, we got coaches that are getting a little long in the tooth that don't want to recruit in this name, image, and likeness category. It's like, well, all I got to do is back up a truck with money. No, that's not it. I'll give you an example. Caleb Downs was the best available transfer in the 2024 cycle, period. I don't care what you think about quarterbacks. Caleb Downs was the guy. Had 107 tackles as a safety in true freshman at Alabama. First, starting as a freshman for Nick Saban in his defensive backfield is an achievement in and of itself. And then you could see why he was able to do that. Saban retires, he goes into the portal. Do you expect Caleb Downs was lowballed by anybody? No. So why did he pick Ohio State? He had a 3-hour conversation with then defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, to which Jim Knowles said, I felt like I was the guy that was being interviewed at that time. That's called recruiting. That's what that is. You get him to Ohio State and you go win championships. It's all part of it. You have to manage your roster. You have to manage the budget. And you have to keep guys ingrained. We're no longer in that space where you can use fear to keep a lot of players in check, especially at the upper echelon of the sport. You're going to have to love them. You're going to have to show them that you want them to be there because they can go to the portal anytime. And now with revenue sharing coming in, we understand there's another aspect to this. We got a bunch of coaches talking about, I just want to coach ball. All right, cool. Go coach high school. Go coach middle school. Coach Pee-wee. Coach midgets. Here, we play for money now. We've been playing for money now. We've been playing for money since we put games on television. So what are we looking for from Lincoln Riley going into this season? Well, take a look at the schedule. I expect him to be no worse than 4-0 when they get to their first ranked opponent. Check out their schedule here. Missouri State, Georgia Southern, by the way, the Clay Helton Bowl, if you will. That's going to be fun. Purdue, at Purdue. Purdue ain't nobody. Purdue ain't been nobody. Barry Odom's going to have a hard time in his first year. Purdue was god-awful. Purdue was worse than Florida State last year. Give that some thought. Then you got Michigan State. They're not going to be that good. They should not trouble you. And then you're at Illinois. And Illinois might be a top 10 team by the time these two play, which means that you would be playing to get into the top 25 if you're not already there, depending on what happens those first few weeks at USC. But then you run a gauntlet. You go from Illinois to Michigan to at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, at Oregon, UCLA. I don't know that this is the year that we can expect SC to be there at the end, guys. That's a gauntlet. That is an honor mode run, if you will. I think that when we look at SC, we're going to ask the question, what are they going to be like in 2027? What are they going to be like in 2028? To which you might ask the question, is Lincoln Riley still going to be around for this? That's good, because if they go 5-7 this year, say they don't make a bowl game, he's on a hot seat. I don't know that he'd get fired for that, but we'd have the conversation. I'm sure we'd have the conversation, no matter how stacked the schedule looks, because Michigan's going to have a true freshman at quarterback, we think, in Bryce Underwood. That's a game you ought to be able to win. You gave it up at the end last year. At Notre Dame, it's going to be tough, but you're going to have a new quarterback there in C.J. Carr, right? At Nebraska, going to be tough. They probably should have beat you the last time. They didn't. Will they have learned from that? And how good in all of this is Jaden Mayava going to be, right? To say nothing of what we expect from their wide receivers, what we expect from their defense going into this season. But I'm also looking at this up against what I think is a really important comparison, Mike Gundy, right? Mike Gundy's coming into a season where he's got to win. He went head up against the president of the university and he won in a contract dispute. Now that you've got everything you want, once again, because that's how Mike Gundy rolls up there in Stillwater, ain't nobody telling Mike Gundy what to do up there. It's just what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. But if you can't come through in a Big 12 that feels like it's as easy as it has been since, we formed it, there's no more Oklahoma and Texas, you're watching teams like Kansas State, like Colorado, like Iowa State, like Arizona State win a championship in a year where we were expecting Oklahoma State to be that, with Ollie Gordon returning. That offensive line was supposed to be so good, 5 returning starters. Turns out they missed on the quarterback. Now, they got to 100% go after people, because that win they had against Arkansas, we felt like was a harbinger of things to come. We were wrong about that, right? But now, we're talking about Lincoln Riley, who lost to Mike Gundy, 2021, 37-33. No matter that both those teams were top 10 ranked teams, it just matters that, one of them lost. And then the next day, Lincoln Riley cut the line, right? Left the fish in the water and decided to go to SC. Okay. Gundy, though, has gone 20-19 since that win against Riley and Oklahoma. And they were 0-9 in the Big 12 last year. That's not going to cut it. You're also looking at this from a standpoint of going from a 10-win season in 2023 to 7-6, right? After that season, right? And then we're going and looking at this 3-9 disaster that they've had here. Ollie Gordon was nowhere to be found, even if he got cited for that DUI. Mike Gundy said, I'm not going to sit him. He's going to go through the process like everybody else. I'm curious. if you see a guy like Lincoln Riley come up and he wins 10 games this year, I don't know that that's in the cards for USC, but let's say that when you throw the tarot, that's what you get, right? You look up, you see cups, and it's a good sign, right? If you're Mike Gundy and you can't match that, what are you telling people? As you are saying that you don't have enough money to go around, as you're trying to put barcodes on the back of helmets and jerseys to try to raise money for name, image, and likeness. Some of this is just you getting paid, dog. And you're turning out offensive and defensive coordinators like laundry. Nobody knows the guys that he has coming to coach for him. And that's in large part due to what Dana Hogerson was able to do. You bring a guy in, be your offensive coordinator, like Dana Hogerson, who did not buy a house in Stillwater, stayed in a hotel because he wasn't staying there for long. And you get tired of trading them out. So what you end up doing is going to get guys that really don't have that big an aura. And you put them on. He did this with Jim Knowles coming from Duke, right? I enjoyed that. But when you start going to get guys like from Shippensburg State, which is the thing he did with Mike Yursich, or from Gannon, right? You're going to have all these questions about who's actually running the show here. Casey Dunn was a guy that wanted to leave unless he was elevated. He was elevated, didn't work. He got fired. That's how Mike Gundy's choosing the role. Gundy knows exactly what he has to get done. I'm not sure that Riley thinks that he got to win 10 games this year because nobody's going to make that clear to him. But in as far as competing against Ohio State, it's going to take more than being the number one team on June 1st in the 2026 composite to beat Ohio State. And I think many people know that, but I did want to draw that out in crayon for you.